Hi, and welcome to the Kitchen Masterclass brought to you by MasterCard and the Lost in a City. My name is Tanaz Bahnam. I am the founder of the Kitchen Nigeria and Lost in a City. We're so excited to bring to you the first ever Kitchen Masterclass with 6 experts from the food, service, and design industries. Each industry will be covering the different pillars that we believe are extremely important in creating the perfect restaurant environment. For the food segment, we have executive chef and founder of the Honor Lagos, Chef Obehi, and executive chef and co-founder of Z Kitchen, Chef Ziad. For the service segment, we have co-founder and CEO of RSVP and Slow, Nahi Halabi, and sommelier Shen Mumba from the Wine Lab. For the design segment, we have creative director of C Consulting, Anderson Edebor, and the creative director for iDesign, Tola Akerele. We're very excited to bring to you all these amazing experts to help you better understand how to become a restaurateur. We hope you enjoy the series.
Hi, my name is Obehi Ekoma Al-Herfi. I am the co-founder and the executive chef of the Honor Lagos. Today we're talking about 4 parts of putting together a restaurant kitchen. We'll start with menu development, and then we'll move on to running the kitchen, and then sourcing ingredients and a few recommendations for aspiring restaurateurs. For the first segment, menu development, as a chef, I love the creative aspect and the art of menu development, from imagining the flavors to tasting to recipe testing to getting it wrong and starting all over again. I love the process that goes into building a menu. Things to consider when you develop menus. I would say the menu concept, basically, what do you want your restaurant to be known for? That's key. It has to be unique, it has to be memorable. You need to decide whether you want fusion or not, if you want to use local ingredients or not. Visualize the eating experience, the look and the feel. Visualize the plating. Basically, every dish, the plate is almost like the canvas you put each dish on, and need to visualize what that would look like, the colors, the textures, and how the clients and the guests would see each and every one of these aspects and how they would enjoy the art that you have brought forward. Besides the menu concept, you have to consider the menu design. That's key because too many options create decision fatigue. And finally, last but not least, you have to think about menu costing. In my opinion, I believe you should do the math 2 times and do it again and adjust it where it's necessary, because each dish has to make financial sense at the end of the day. And then at the end, you taste test. You taste test with the front of house and the back of house team, and you can invite loyal customers. Maybe you make it a party, and I'm happy to give you feedback. And finally, also work with a consultant, hire a consultant, and they can definitely give you an unbiased point of view as to the directions to go with your menu and what will work best for you and how to strike the right balance. The next part we'll talk about is running a kitchen. All it takes is for a station to be backed up, a burnt entree, burnt starter, basically a dish to be sent back from the floor, to throw the entire kitchen into chaos and basically back up everything. I believe running a kitchen is, in essence, controlling chaos. That's where we build strategies and game plans so we can work through the thick and thin of a busy restaurant service. Restaurant kitchens use the Escoffier hierarchy of system to basically control the chaos and keep the kitchen organized. Most kitchens have executive chefs, chef de cuisine. Chef de cuisine is, if this is an executive chef, chef de cuisine is the one that's in charge of cooking, and there's a sous chef who is the second in command. And then there's a soucier. Soucier is basically the sauce chef or sauce cook, and sauce cook is usually ends up being a sous chef or a head chef in the kitchen as time goes on. And then there's the other CDPs. For example, we have CDPs are chef de parties. There's the entremetier, which is the vegetable cook. There is the potager, which is the soup cook. We have a pastry chef, which basically works on pastries. Then we have other chef de parties. Chef de parties are basically line cooks. So it varies from potager, rôtisseur. Potager is basically a soup chef. Rôtisseur is a roast chef. We have a poissonnier, which is basically a fish cook. We have a boucher, which is a butcher chef. Most kitchens don't need all those chefs. We just have like line cooks, maybe 5 or 6 or 10, depending on how much you need. We have commis, which are basically prep cooks that help out in the kitchen. And then we have, of course, our dishwashers and the cleaners. The most important principle in running the kitchen is mise en place, everything in its place. So each chef at each station must assemble and prep every component of every dish from their station. They cannot, when we have orders flying in, we can't be basically going and prepping dishes from scratch. You lose flow, you basically run into chaos. So running a kitchen is very important that mise en place is 100% for each cook or each chef in the kitchen. Things to consider: size of the kitchen team needed, menu size, number of stations required based on the different chefs you have and how detailed your menu is. The kitchen layout, we have different kitchen layouts. We have a zone kitchen layout, we have an assembly line kitchen layout. Zone is basically different zones, different stations. Assembly line is when everyone's kind of like lined up doing small, menial tasks because the menu is very complex. We have a galley, we have an island, we have an open kitchen. At the Ona restaurant, we actually use a different layouts just to make sure that for optimal flow and to create transparency for our guests. Also, checklists. When you're running a kitchen, you need checklists. So we need opening and closing stocks. We need inventory. We need to make sure that you have opening and closing with par levels also, so you know the minimum amount of stock you should have on hand at every given time. Maintain an inventory sheet that would be updated daily, weekly, bi-weekly, depending on the size of your restaurant. Also, back of house and front of house need to work closely to understand each and every dish component, basically to make sure that smooth running of the restaurant. Sourcing ingredients and equipment for your restaurant. It's important that you investigate your supply chain to find out where to get the freshest ingredients and the most durable equipment. I would say the rule of thumb there is always buy smart, never cheap, and also find suppliers that are reliable, consistent, and they successfully provide you with everything you need to bring your menu to life as often as possible. For suppliers, I would say you need to make sure you have poultry, seafood, meat, red meat, whatever kind of meat your menu requires, dairy, produce suppliers, things to consider. Your menu needs. What are your menu needs? What would you need to essentially for every item on your menu for optimal quality? Who can bring that for you? Who can supply that for you? And also delivery requirements. You think about frequency. How frequent can they bring it? How frequent do you need the ingredients? Consistent freshness. How often are they bringing in? Proper receiving and handling of these goods. Of course, you have to weigh them and scale them and make sure everything is as required. Your storage capacity. How big is your storage capacity in your walk-in, in your frozen section? In your dry storage, you need to make sure you have enough storage for the things that you will be bringing in. For equipment, it's the essential equipment that you need to bring your menu to life. I feel like you need to first have your menu before you start thinking about the equipment you need, just so you don't overbuy or purchase things that are not necessary. Top recommendations for aspiring restaurateurs. I would say consistency is key. From sourcing your ingredients, to cooking your ingredients, to serving your ingredients, it's important that every single time a client comes in and they have a beautiful experience, they can come back and have that same beautiful experience. It would definitely help you increase your customer loyalty. Next, your staffing. A great team will help you make sure you win every single time. You need to nurture a good company culture. I'm all for collaborative cultures, basically bringing the team together and everyone like on the same playing field when we're off duty. That's very important. Also, when you're hiring staff, it's very important that you hire for qualities, hire for attitude. Not necessarily for past experience. It's nice to get people that have worked in big restaurants before or have a lot of experience. However, it might be difficult to have them assimilate into your company culture. I like to hire people that have really good attitudes, and I will train them with the skills that I need for them to do the job at hand. Also, challenge your staff, reward your staff, mentor them. Be firm, be disciplined. To be honest, in the restaurant industry, we spend a lot of time in the restaurant and at work, and so we actually become more family than we like to believe. But this is actually one of our first families, and it's important that you have your staff know that they can rely on you, they can depend on you, and I mean, you're there for them. And finally, cook what you love. It's important to cook what you love, cook what you're passionate about. Also, of course, try and strike a balance between what customers want, but it's important to cook what you love. It has to. There is a secret ingredient, they say, that is love, and it's important that it shows through the food. I believe you should find a gap in the market and balance it with what you love. I'm Chef Obehi. Thank you for joining my masterclass.
Hi, my name is Ziad Baidoun. I'm the co-founder and executive chef of Z Kitchen and most recently Zia Delicacy Boutique in Victoria Island, Lagos. And this is the Kitchen Masterclass. We're going to be talking about the kitchen. So I'm going to talk about starting up your kitchen for your restaurant and mainly 3 important things that you need to keep in mind as you get started. Know what your offering is. That's number 1. Because this is what's going to determine your kitchen design. Obviously, you have a space that you have found already, and this space can be designed in endless ways. Most importantly, you're keeping in mind the fact that a kitchen is a unidirectional flow, which means that when you have different sections that are moving forward in the kitchen from, let's say, their dirty state or their raw state to being prepped and cleaned and then prepped and then obviously cooked or transformed, and then they would go out to your customers. So your space has to be designed in such a way where you cannot do back and forth, which means that on your receiving end has to be the start, and then possibly you would have your sinks for washing your vegetables and other sinks for washing, cleaning up your fish and different items, your poultry. Those are obviously segmented into different stations, ideally. And then you have your prep area, which is a clean side, and then you don't want to be going back. You don't want to have your dirty section after your prep area, because that will create a hazard, for example, in terms of dirtying a now clean item, and then your hot section is might come later on, etc. So knowing your space will determine this design, and once you have that, you have a set kitchen. You also have to be aware of any possibility for growth. So you might have a particular budget in mind at the beginning that you had to spend, but your ideas might be bigger than that, so it's okay. Not everybody can start with big investment, for example. So know what your investment is, because you don't want to do things anyhow. You want to do proper things, but to your budget. So there's always There's always ways to keep within your design, let's say in terms of plumbing or future for future growth. You might need a dishwasher in the future, for example, that you don't have budget for right now. So you can do within your civil works, a space for where that dishwasher might be in the future. You might have budget only for one fryer, for example, when you get started, but you might want to expand and have 2 or 3 fryers because your menu might have more fried food. So second of all, know your menu. And know your menu from the start, because also this will help you with your kitchen design, which means that if you know you want to do a lot of fried food, then you know from the start that you need different, many fryers. Let's say one for vegetables, chicken, fish, etc. Because obviously you don't want to have a chicken tasting like seafood, and you also don't want to have potential allergy hazards for your customers. You can't have a menu that does not fit what your equipment is. So your limitation for your menu, one of the limitations for your menu actually is the fact that you might not have the proper equipment in your kitchen for it. So again, this is a really important point that you need to keep in mind. Another point that's related to the menu is you can't have a very large menu if you have a very small kitchen. It doesn't really, there's a limit. You don't have storage space. You won't have enough resources. There's so many cooks you can have in the kitchen if it's too small, and you don't want to have a bad experience given to your customer if you can't deliver. So having a 20-page menu for a kitchen, let's say this size, will not work. So the second point on your menu is your raw material. So if your menu is too large, then you have to source so many of these ingredients. Then your ingredients are most likely very, very large as well, which one has a potential to, especially in Lagos, there's a potential to run out of stock, because now it's highly likely that one supplier does not supply all these. But even if one supplier supplied all these, for sure they will not have all these ingredients all the time. So you might end up having a lot of 86 items, which is a very bad experience to your customer. So limiting down your menu again is a very important aspect to what you can do in your kitchen, in your market, and you always want to keep in mind your customer experience at the end of the day, because this is what your business is. So the final point I'm going to talk about is your role as the head chef of your restaurant. You have to remember one thing, that a restaurant kitchen has different people occupying different roles. You have your stewards, your dishwashers, your commis, your line cooks, your chefs de partie, your sous chef, and then your head chef. Obviously, each person has a role and responsibility inside this kitchen, and namely, we're going to talk about the top position, which is what you're going to be occupying. And that role is not only, you're no longer really only cooking or creating, or you're also managing your kitchen, which means that you need to be aware of your costs, especially these days. Worldwide, prices are soaring worldwide. Your ingredients. So an item that you're selling at a particular price right now, because it cost you X amount, might not be the same cost for you tomorrow or next week or the month after. So you're constantly thinking whether it's still feasible to have this item on the menu, You're thinking whether you're going to increase, whether it makes sense to increase its price and whether you can still sell it at that new price. Or you might even take a decision to, cut down on your margin and just, see where, it might lead. You might keep selling it, you might make less money from it, but more people might also buy it. So there's all these decisions that you're going to have to juggle. You have to also see how you might manage a particular dish on your menu for different stock ruptures. If there's a substitute item that you might, change to and keep the dish, or you might now keep a main item from within a dish and now start offering another side, for example. So you are also an accountant for your kitchen. You are also managing people, so you're managing your staff. So you need to have, a leadership role that will allow you to manage this, all your kitchen staff. You need to weather any concerns they might have. A lot of times they might have personal issues, and you still have to deal with it. Your work has to your work has to go, keep going, even if you have someone that didn't show up at work. Many times that happens. People get sick all the time, etc. So you are not only cooking anymore. So now that you've gotten all of these ideas in your mind and you're thinking about them and you're getting started, I would say the most important thing to keep in mind is your drive for what you're doing. So keep that passion within you for the job that you decided to take on, and this is what's going to lead you to keep improving, to keep adding, and to improve on your restaurant, on your offering. This will allow you to grow personally and find new things you might like, you might want to take on, and hopefully it will lead to your success actually in this new business that you're started. So thank you very much for joining this class. I hope a lot of the ideas that you heard will trigger, some more thoughts for you and lead you to do some more, research, think about your project and plan it better. And I wish you all the success in your endeavor, and best wishes.